Vanderbilt loses to Alabama this year in a game that David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, Blaine Crain, former Western State Colorado wide receiver. It was a pretty damn good game. Obviously, the final score is not going to indicate kind of how this game went. And you got to give all the credit in the world to Alabama being able to respond, obviously scoring that touchdown before half. But really, the two biggest things that stand out to me, and David, I'll start with you first. One is we talked about the time of possession and the way this game needed to go for Vanderbilt to be able to win on the road. Bama absolutely lapped them in time of possession. And then probably the biggest thing in the game, 2 turnovers in the red zone for Vandy. The Diego Pavia fumble, then the Diego Pavia interception as Sab jumped in on the crosser. And you can't do those things and win against a quality team on the road in that environment. And for all the trash Diego Pavia talked, it was he that turned the ball over. And at the end of the day, obviously it's a team sport, but cost Vanderbilt the game. Just, man, I tell you, that one went back and forth, dude. I mean, that's about as close as I've ever seen the personnel between Alabama and Vanderbilt in a football game.
Yeah. I mean, can we just say a really good football team, a really good football game between two really good football teams, which I know is weird for a lot of people around the country to hear when we're talking about Vanderbilt. But, I mean, Alabama had every reason in the world to dominate this game and blow them out. With, like you said, all of the trash talking and the loss last year. That wasn't the case, man. Actually, Vanderbilt started about as well as you could. That 4th and 1 for Alabama in plus territory on the opening drive, I said, this is going to set the tone for the rest of the game. Not only did Alabama not turn around and hand that football off and get it, play action is what they went with, and Ty Simpson threw his first interception of the season. Vanderbilt turns right around and has a 65-yard touchdown run. But kudos to Alabama for figuring out a way to turn things around on that. I still have some questions about the offensive scheme in terms of the run game and on defense too. The run fits. I mean, there's some problems there that you could see in the first half, but big win for them, and they added on another touchdown late there at the end.
Well, to that point, David and Blaine, this is something that we talked about after that first Florida State game with Alabama is what is the mental makeup of this team? What is the mental toughness level of this team? And you have the nightmare that happened against Vanderbilt last year on the road. Vandy comes into your house. The first drive, you're moving the ball, you turn it over. They go score, right, to make it 7-7. But Alabama didn't hang their head. They kept punching back. And I think if you're an Alabama fan, and even despite the negative stuff, we'll talk about Ty Simpson maybe holding on to the ball a little bit long instead of throwing the ball away. At least the question I think has been answered. How is this Alabama team mentally when it's not going good? 2 weeks in a row now, you've answered the bell when you've had to. You've done it on offense. You've done it on defense. And you won the game, and you're sitting here now 2-0 in the SEC, right? 4-1 overall, and it's looking a lot different than it did after week 1.
Well, yeah, I think it all starts with your quarterback if you're Alabama when it comes to mentality and makeup of who you are. And I think a good lesson is to go back and if you watch that football game, when Ryan Williams dropped that pass, I believe, to get the first down to kind of end the game and Vandy ended up getting the ball back, he was the first person to go talk to him on the bench about keeping his head up and don't worry about it. You can get him next play. That was Ty Simpson. Although he might have held the ball long a couple of times, I mean, the kid had another absolute day, 23 of 31, 340 yards through the air, had a couple of rushing attempts too where he did pretty good, got outside the pocket and really showed his speed. At the end of the day, he's a dual threat quarterback. But I will say this, it's a great win for Alabama. Vanderbilt might, even with this loss, move up in the rankings, in my opinion. Because, I mean, they were blow to blow. I think they got a little bit leaned on in the second half there, which isn't surprising. But other than 2 red zone turnovers that you usually don't see from a Vanderbilt team or a Diego Pavia team that he's playing for, I think they went toe-to-toe with these guys. So what a football game. I think the score is a little bit obviously lopsided than what it was with that last touchdown. But I will say this. Great win for Kalen DeBoer. Because there's a lot of worries about him coming off this win. Obviously, Vandy's not a trap game, but they playing clean, man. 1 turnover. You only had 3 penalties for 30 yards. I know it's at home, but that's been a big knock on him playing opponents like this. I thought at the end of the day, not only did Ty Simpson come through, but I thought Kalen DeBoer did too.
Well, if you notice now, last year and you go back to the Florida State game a little bit this season, the big knock was the undisciplined play of Alabama, and they would be the ones getting personal fouls in big moments at the end of games. Now, for 2 straight weeks, it was the opposing team. the Georgia player, I believe it was Ellis, jumping on the pile. And then obviously the personal fouls that we saw twice on Vanderbilt. One, I believe, on the kickoff return. And then after the interception, even though there was a defensive hold before that, that really didn't reward Vandy from a yardage standpoint when they really had to have it. So again, it's that type of growth as a team that you look at. And then Jam Miller coming back. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that you look at the efficiency level of this offense for Alabama and how it has lifted since Jam has come back. And Blaine, you talk about obviously the pass pro and things like that we talked about, but 22 carries, a $136, a touchdown, didn't turn the ball over, had some big runs. You know, I know there's going to be some Alabama fans right now that are like, yes, we won by 16. We covered. That's great. This week, you know, last week you got shut out in the second half and found a way to win. Now you shut out Vanderbilt in the second half, including that big stop to start off the second half, David. And you just feel like this Alabama team, as talented as they are, they're still growing. And the best news is, I don't think you're playing your best ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think Alabama's best ball is ahead of them. And when I look around the landscape of college football, I'm watching Penn State lose to UCLA. Who the hell else knows what's going to happen? Texas loses to Florida. Alabama seems to be making positive corrections as the year goes on, while we have this volatility everywhere else. And that may be the team that ends up winning it at the end of the day.
And let's be honest, Alabama is in a better position right now than they were a year ago. How
100%.
fascinating is it to think about that after that disappointing week 1 loss at Florida State? Because while that was disappointing to a lot of Alabama fans, that was an out-of-conference loss. A year ago, you were sitting here after a big win against Georgia, and you lost to Vanderbilt, gave you your first conference loss, and then from there, things kind of unraveled. So Alabama right now is in a good position, which is saying a lot considering where we were after week 1. I think it's funny to hear Blaine say that he thinks Vanderbilt will move up in the rankings. That won't happen from the national media because of the brand bias. It'll be interesting to see if it happens with our power rankings, though, because for a lot of this game, I thought, man, I'm more impressed with Vanderbilt today in a loss than I was last year in a win, because like I said, Alabama had every reason to dominate and blow them out. And Jake, you put it a good way, which is from a personnel perspective, it was as even as I've ever seen it. But if you're Alabama, you don't even, this isn't even worth celebrating. You're supposed to beat Vanderbilt. That's the mentality you need to move forward with, because right now you're at Missouri, Tennessee at home, at South Carolina, LSU at home.
Yeah, and then you get Oklahoma at home. Yeah. Like it's a great point, Dave. These next 5 games for Alabama, obviously every game is huge, but now, you know, that SEC cushion that you have starting off 2-0 is huge. And when everybody else seems to be kind of dropping like flies, I'm telling you guys, the longer this year goes on, Blaine, I think 9-3 for some of these teams, maybe the new 10-2 with what we saw last year with this schedule. And now if you're an Alabama fan tonight, you're instantly a Florida State fan. You are a huge Florida State fan at home against Miami, because that could kind of, you know, double quarter pounder this win. But on the Vanderbilt side, today, to your point, Blaine, a little bit earlier, and then to David's, if you're Vanderbilt's, I mean, I thought it'd be a cold day in hell when I would sit there and watch Vanderbilt's personnel be able to hang in there. Now, I know Alabama kind of pushed them around a little bit in the second half. We can talk about depth, but throughout this game, Vandy was punch for punch, and your ass better get ready. You've got to be able to move on from this, because you got LSU at home, you got Missouri at home, you go to Texas, you get Auburn at home. So it's just, I mean, these next 5 games for both of these teams, neither one is obviously out of it, including Vandy, who's now 1-1 in the SEC. They're 5-1 overall. This Vanderbilt team can still do damage. But Blaine, I you know, during the game, you're over here at my house right now. You said something, and obviously David's not here. You think Diego Pavia had a concussion early in this game?
That hit, I don't know if y'all remember that hit, but he was spinning off a tackle, then turn around, and the D tackle from Alabama just right in the face. Not targeting. I don't think targeting is a real thing, but he got up kind of woozy, but he did make some plays after that.
Yeah, we're not saying they won because of that, but I thought it was an interesting observation.
It just looked a little off to me after that. So, but at the end of the day, like, you got to give Alabama their credit for winning this football game, because this isn't your dad's Vanderbilt. This isn't your grandfather's Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's one of the oldest teams in college football, right? Their experience, their roster's experience. Clark Lee has these guys going in the right direction. But Alabama, and the big thing I kind of find out, like Ryan Grubb stuck to the run game.
Well, it's
He did
he
to me.
did.
There's some fourth down questionable calls. I understand that, but what do you run it? You ran it 31 times. And remember what Ryan Grubb got in trouble with a little bit in Seattle. He got pass happy.
Yeah,
right?
but I still think though.
Not only are the players growing each week in and week out, but I think so are the coaches too. I think Ryan Grubb is still getting somewhat of a feel for the identity of this offense, and they're only going to get better and better.
Well, I still think, and I'm sure in the comments, I want to, Alabama fans or just anybody in general, I want to see what they think. There's some times, David, where I still think Grubb gets too cute, right? Where you're lining up and whipping their ass in the second half up front on the offense. Like, you don't have to be John Madden or John Gruden to figure out that getting up there and running power and counter and inside zone and outside zone and split zone, it's working. Just sometimes I think there was a play with Ty where it was an RPO, and I don't think they needed to call it. I'm trying to remember what down it was. I want to say it may have been 1st and 5 after the offsides, where you just line up and you run your base bread and butter stuff because you're leaning on them, but you go RPO. Ty keeps it, gets hit as he floats it out to the receiver, and they're lucky that there wasn't a Vanderbilt defender that could have jumped in front of that and intercepted it as they're driving to go kick that field goal. But I guess there is a balance, Coney, of not being too predictable, not being too vanilla, giving your guys chances to make some special plays and exotics. And then at the end of the day, just lining up and doing what you're better than they're at.
Well, I've been saying this for weeks, but it can only be criticized when it doesn't work, right?
Exactly,
and that's
right.
kind of the point I was making on that first drive, 4th and 1. How many Nick Saban Alabama teams have we seen who would turn the football around and get 1 yard against Vanderbilt instead of play action and you throw your interception? But again, double reverse to Ryan Williams against Wisconsin, goes for 75 yards and a touchdown. You throw it to Caden Proctor on the now screen a week ago. Everyone falls in love with that. So you give him the football today at running back. As a football fan, I'm loving it. But it's only when those plays stop working that then that criticism will open up.
Yeah, and again, looking around the landscape of college football, and we want to know what you think in the comments. If you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. And we're going to continue to talk about this because there's just some massive games on the horizon. Guys, as we sit here at 6:22 p.m. on Saturday night, I mentioned Penn State loses to UCLA. We still have Miami, Florida State coming up. Texas goes down against Florida. I'm still looking around college football, and nobody looks elite to me. Nobody looks elite, which is great. It's going to make it a lot more fun for us. But now it's the growth race, right? Like we mentioned earlier, kind of Blaine, over to you. It's these teams that can grow the most exponentially with new quarterbacks. And I know Ty Simpson's 25 years old or whatever, but he's still green behind the ears when it comes to leading a team, and he's being able to win games in multiple ways. And I thought the defense really stepped up too for Alabama. I want to make sure and give Kane Womack some credit. I know Cedric Alexander hit him for that big 65-yarder. Diego, and I think a Q counter, hit him for about 31 time. But the halftime adjustments, Alabama won that, and that's what I'm used to seeing from Alabama, and that's how you shut a team out in the second half.
Yeah, not only that, but I think Ty Simpson did it again, just like he did in Georgia. I tell you,
is he leading the Heisman race?
I still put Dante Moore up there, to be honest. They might be the best 2-minute, no timeout team in the country.
How about that 2-minute drill before halftime?
They did the same thing against Georgia, just on beat, bang, 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 and something like, maybe this is just a receiver in me, but it just makes me think like, damn. I mean, Alabama will probably be really good if they're an up-tempo football team.
Well, I think Isaiah Horton may be the most underrated player in the country.
Hold down the field, not only against Vandy, but against Georgia. So, I mean, and Jake, it kind of goes back to your point. It's going to be a grow-in race now, right? Who can grow each week? Who can limit mistakes, not only limit mistakes, but learn from their mistakes? And that leans a lot on the coaching staff. So it's good to see with Kalen DeBoer. I'm sure, look, Clark Lee and Vanderbilt, they're going to be in every game they play for the rest of the year.
Well, I mean, we live in a world where Vanderbilt fans are disappointed after losing on the road at Alabama.
Yeah.
Like, that's the world we live in now. It's weird. Feels like the upside down from Stranger Things. But this is the best. This is the most talented Vanderbilt team I've ever seen. And it's not, I'm not talking about just at quarterback. They've had Jay Cutler before. They've had some wide receivers that could really go do it. But it's up front on the line of scrimmage. Vanderbilt belongs, but Alabama was able to answer it. Kind of parting shots, guys, here as we get ready for this Miami-Florida State game. David, kind of starting with you if you have any.
Hey, no, just a great football game. Like I said, I think both of these teams can still accomplish a lot. And if you're Alabama, with how bad it looked after that first week, you're sitting in the best possible place you could following that week 1 loss to Florida State.
Well, Blaine, you always, you hate to lose, but I wonder at the end of this season if we're going to look back and say maybe, just maybe, that Florida State game was the catalyst that this Alabama team and Kalen DeBoer and this staff needed to get them where they eventually wound up.
Sure. I wouldn't be surprised by that. And look, they have the talent to win it all. It's just you have to put that talent on the field and they have to execute. But when on the other side of Vanderbilt, Diego Pavia is Icarus, man. He just flew too close to the sun.
You did talk a lot of ish, and you turned it over twice in the red zone. Like it was you. But I mean, the dudes, they fought their guts out. I mean, Vanderbilt has nothing to hang their heads about. Just a great college football game. The score is kind of not indicative of how that game went. Still a one-score game, really until the last 5 minutes there in the fourth quarter. But make sure you check out our Texas and Florida instant reaction. We've got full recaps. We've got previews. If you love college football, you love Crain and Company. So make sure you're locked in here in the Trust Tree, and we'll see you soon.